Here we are, episode 3 of the 30 years of Fitger's Brewhouse, our Legend series. Sitting here with Dave Hoops, again, true legend. So Dave came with us from Pyramid Brewing years ago. His brother Mike had quit to open up his own business. He went to Northern Michigan at first, and then made his way down to now Town Hall, down to Minneapolis. And Mike said, hey, listen, guys, talking to Tim and I, my brother's interested in possibly moving back to Duluth. And that was it. That was the only thing we heard. And before you know it, Dave Hoops is brewing beer and creating legendary status. So welcome, Dave, and 30 years of Fitger's Brewhouse. And God, it's great to see you here.
It's nice to be here. That's a funny story, and I'll tell it, but it's really quite cool to be sitting in, well, it's the Red Star Lounge.
Yep.
Barrel room now.
Barrel room, yep.
We spend an awful lot of time in here, and it's really remarkable how this came to be, which we could talk about later, but it looks great in here. So 1999, my daughter Daisy, our daughter, was born in San Francisco in 98. And my wife, born and raised here in Duluth,
yep.
We thought we would be living in San Francisco for the rest of our lives. And one day I was informed that the idea was raising children in Duluth, being closer to family, friends, all that.
Yeah.
So that was, you're not going to happy wife, happy life. You know the deal. But so while I was thinking about that, my brother Mike, who you've talked about in the past, you guys did a monster amount of work to get this place open. One night he called me and he said, I've got an opportunity and I think I'm going to talk to the guys and I might be moving on. Are you interested? And I said, well, very. I have to move to Duluth and it's the only brewery that I would want to work at. And the rest is history. Christmas 99, 23 below zero is when I arrived. Yeah, crazy.
Yeah, I remember that. And you coming from this pristine, super professional mammoth brewing pyramid to this little English clad mom-and-pop system. What did you think when you walked in originally?
I was a little overwhelmed because Pyramid was making, well, that year, the last year I was there, they were a nationwide brewery and they had 180,000 barrels, which a barrel is 2 kegs.
Yep.
So 360,000 barrels, and it was a pretty unbelievably large system. And when I came here, Mike had brewed 100 barrels the year before. I was really excited about the hands-on, the ability, the untapped market, which there was a lot of beers being made out west that hadn't been made here yet. But also, my little brother Mike's middle name should be MacGyver. Mike MacGyver Hoops.
Yeah.
Not me so much. Duct tape, Band-Aids.
Yeah. Yeah.
This system made amazing brewers because I used to tell people, you work here for a year, you get 3 years of experience because we were so hands-on. And it was remarkable.
And didn't have all the technology. You had to taste, you had to add, sprinkle of this, sprinkle of that.
Burned down the brewery. There's a lot of various stories that we could touch on.
Forgot about that.
Not me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, funny. Tell us, remember the fire. Here we go. Remember the sprinkler system.
Well, we had a lot of young brewers coming in here. Many of them we plucked from the floor or even the kitchen, but mostly the floor at the brew house. And some of them eventually had training, but we did a lot of internal training. And we had this ancient, very, very jury-rigged timer system to turn on the heating elements in the bottom of the kettle, which would heat the water up in order to be able to brew, because that was basically our hot water to brew with. And for whatever reason, the fail-safe on that, a brewer shut it off, turn it on, fail-safe didn't go off, and it evaporated the entire tank until there was nothing in there, and then that thing started on fire, the heating element. I'll never forget. And it was it's terrible. And I imagine for you guys, it was really terrible too. Now we did manage to really improve the brewery, kind of silver lining type of deal. And we didn't burn it down completely.
Right.
I'll never forget that phone call though. Your brewery's on fire. I was in the cities buying kegs for the brewery. And I'm like, yeah, don't mess with me right now.
No,
Yeah.
It was the same thing. I got the same phone call. And Fitger's could be up in smoke, so we're pretty thankful that that didn't happen. But from there we expanded. This room, the Red Star, this used to be the Red Cross. Remember that? So
Oh, yeah.
you'd get mannequins over here and practice your, your 15-2 breathing compressions thing. So we took that over, and then this became that. So then your brewing skills led to bringing in one of your dear friends, Michael, that then became some of the cocktails and informed some of this more, again, educated, cultured, sophisticated beer, sophisticated cocktails. And you just kind of walk sophistication. And from that, I've always likened the Brewhouse to like the Minnesota Twins Farm Club. We had the professional on top with Dave Hoops, but man, the number of quote unquote athletes that came from underneath your tools and went off to brew at their own places. But let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, what had happened when I moved here, we talked about this earlier, there were only 4 working breweries at that time. Sherlock's Home was in the midst of closing out in Shakopee. And I came in and I was taught by like the 5th generations, the OGs, the beginning of our whole industry. And I'm a 4th generation brewer now. And I was taught to brew West Coast style beers, clear, clean, crisp, hop forward, a lot of different styles. And I came in and started making those beers to a lot of success. There's 2 sides to this story. Most of the people in Duluth here, the old joke is they all think they live, off the grid in Alaska.
Right.
The weirder the beer, the more excited they were.
Right.
But the regular everyday beer drinkers had a lot of trouble with the whole, what are hops and where's my Bud Light? And you can tell a lot of stories about that.
Yeah.
But then I started hiring from within, and at our peak, we went from 100 barrels to 3,000 barrels, and we had 10 people working down and back in that brewery, which is remarkable, on 2 different levels in 4 different rooms, putting out more and more, Fitger's Brewhouse North Shore style centric beers that went in line with your vision of a lot of outdoor activity and racing and running and boating, and Tim's activity with music and the arts and shows. And this didn't exist. Mr. Pete's maybe back in the 80s, but nothing like this. You guys made this whole scene, and a lot of the breweries here owe you.
Even when we opened, did the word growler, did that word even exist?
No. And it was a slang term for something we shouldn't say on, the FCC wouldn't like it. So not anymore.
So let's talk about the growler law at Fitger's Brewhouse.
Growler law. So 2007, by then, you things were going quite well here, and you guys were kind of the benchmark for the brew pub model, which in Minnesota allows you to, as your viewers will know, they allow you to have a restaurant and a full bar.
Yep.
You can sell food to go, beer to go, or you couldn't sell beer to go at that point, and you couldn't distribute it all. And this model was really tough because it really locked you out of the market. And we started the Minnesota Brewers Guild. My brother Mike and I were charter members of that with a few other breweries in like 2000. And we worked on that for many years with the Minnesota state representatives and senators down there. And eventually we managed to get a law passed in 2007, which allowed 32-ounce glass containers with proper sealing and all these other rules and regulations to be filled and sold from the bar to go. And that was a huge, huge win. And we still really know quite well. He's a bit of a legend in our industry. He's in the supply side. Chris German, our good friend, was the very first person to come in here and buy a growler. A growler.
Chris, I remember that.
Yeah.
The kind of the ceiling on that was about 500 barrels, if I remember right, which is, as you said earlier, that's about 1,000 kegs. And we were maxing that out back then. After that law change, the number of growlers making their way to canoes and cabins was extraordinary. And boy, I'm not sure the
you maxed it out.
We maxed it out.
Yeah. The law changed again in 2011, and it allowed a little bit more wiggle room, and it gave us the taproom law. Surly really spearheaded that. But so between 07 and 011, really Minnesota brewing became a big deal.
So props to Dave and brother Mike, and of course the guild for bringing the growlers to sale. And then the other one was Sunday Liquor. Roger Reinert, at the time as the senator, had called me up wanting to have liquor on Sundays. for all liquor stores. And as you know, there's pushback on that, and we had talked, you, Tim, and I about, well, why not just, if the liquor stores don't want it, we'll just do growler sales on Sundays. And Roger said, okay. So he presented that bill as this non-threatening. So Fitger's Brewhouse led the charge on Sunday liquor. And now, before you know it, we're the only ones in the whole city of Duluth selling beer for the Vikings games on Sunday. And that beer store was a spinning turnstile, and that was kind of fun.
It was huge. No more going over the bridge to get beer on Sundays.
Yep.
But it was great. And then you even expanded into a little bit of beer delivery, like the liquor stores were doing, which was legal.
Yeah.
Problematic, but that was something that tried to do. And it was really just remarkable because we were also making around those times well over 100 different recipes a year. Which has kind of become the calling card of Fitger's Brewhouse, my own brewing style, which is just really stubbornly traditional. And I still to this day usually keep a lot of beers on tap, just like the Brewhouse does, because the idea is something for everybody.
Right.
You guys do a better job of following trends and really keeping your finger on what like young people want to drink and stuff. I've been a little slower about that, but it's working quite well because that's the future.
Well, the younger version of Dave Hoops was on way ahead of trends. And so you have set it forth, and now your traditional beers are the new trend. As a matter of fact, we celebrate our cherry batch ale thanks to Dave, and the cherry batch has become quite a phenom. And along with our wild rice burger and other couple things we've had, it's become a
They're household names.
What's that?
Household names.
Household names. And the cherry still to this day, and our successing brewers have respectfully
little story there.
Yep,
and and you're doing a beautiful job with that. I still use the same cherry suppliers that I started 23 years ago when I made that beer here.
Yeah.
Still same people. And I put out, I don't put out any beers like the Brewhouse's beers, except I kept cherry as my Christmas beer, 1225. Our beers are named by, just kind of my own whimsy. But what you've done with that brand and that anticipation for that beer, and our beers are very different at this point, but they're both really eagerly awaited, and it's all about Door County. It's all about Bayfield. It's all about local sourcing. And I know you're getting your cherries out of Michigan now. That's local. And it's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you were to kind of reflect, Dave, as we kind of wrap up here, I don't want to take your whole day here, but what was kind of we know, Laura was from Duluth. We know your kids worked here. Your boy went on to be a hockey star and here in Duluth and enjoy the sports here. You're a sports fanatic and you seem to love music. But if you were to kind of leave our viewers with one kind of parting thought about the Fitger's Brewhouse and your time here, how would that rest with you?
Well, you mentioned earlier the farm team. One of the reasons I think you and Tim were so successful is you surrounded yourself with extremely hardworking, intelligent people. You surround yourself with greatness. You treat people well. You let them run free. That's the big lesson I learned. And that's how I treated people that worked here and came under me. That's how I still treat people in my current role. And so being part of something that was so new, and you guys were working so hard in the beginning, none of the viewers know how hard it was. You and Tim both worked monster hours. I went through the same thing when I had to open my own place. And that work and just the inclusion, you've got people that have worked here over 20 years. And just being a part of a growth situation, basically an entire culture, an environment that didn't exist in Duluth at all. I was really proud of that. A big part of my identity was being the brewer at Fitger's. Like my Laura used to call, I'm the brewer's wife, the village brewer.
Right.
And so I got a lot out of that. And the idea was to move here and have a life that we couldn't really afford San Francisco, buying a house and stuff, and having a nice life to raise your children in this environment. And that was exactly what happened. So I'm always going to be grateful for that. And I'm always going to kind of look at the brew house as everything that basically the spark that started it all. And it still exists. People come up here, they have to go to the brew house. They have to stop by here. You guys have kept that going without missing a beat. Even COVID, you got through more impressively than I did. So kudos. Yeah.
Well, Dave trained well over 30 brewers that went on to open their own breweries or become head brewers and elsewhere. So I would bet in the United States, there's not too many people that I can say that in the whole United States that train people to become leaders in the industry that they're in. Not too many fields at all. So without being like a professor in a university, you're literally training where you work for Hoops, hired, done, no questions asked. You're now the guy. It wasn't, let me see your resume so that's what I think when I think of here. And that circles back to, I am pretty cocky and pretty proud that I hired, along with Tim, smart people because I'm not smart enough. So it's great to have people like you. And you are, if I could say one thing without, kissing your butt here, but you are the hardest worker I've ever known and the hardest thinker. And you were very loyal and a great friend. And it was fun to watch you. Dave and I started out, we met each other bicycling back in the 80s. Before he took off.
Never quite as fast as Rod. Look at his YouTubes and stuff.
Yeah. So we had we go back even before you came back from San Fran. So Dave, I know this is kind of a public space, but thanks for all you've done for brewing in Duluth, for my business and Tim's business, and you're a great guy, man. You're just a great guy. Appreciate you.
Thank you. I thanks for giving me the time. I jumped at the chance. 30 years. You got to be so proud. You've got a whole year to celebrate this 30 years.
Yep.
Just, everybody should enjoy it. Everybody should come on in here and try the old beers. You're still pouring beers like Petroglyph and stuff from the first early days. Starfire,
bestseller. White House Golden.
What a pale ale should taste like. Starfire pale ale. Yeah. It's kind of an institution, this place. So again,
where do you see the next 30 years going as we kind of close out? Not necessarily here, but your joint, my joint. What do you think is happening with craft beers?
I think craft beers are always going to be here, and there's always going to be an interested market. People are always going to drink beer. This is an interesting stat. Never in our history have under 30-year-olds drank less beer in the history of America. Now that's right now, and that has nothing to do with the youth who have a better handle in general on drinking in moderation, although they really like the THCs and the seltzer waters and all that. And so what I think we need to do is continue to offer everything from like really, really low alcohol beer to, responsibly high alcohol beer in huge varieties, because that's what the big brewers can't do. And then make it inclusive, make it community-based, make it all about the people, the locals, everything that people come here, they know the person making the beer, they know the owner. That's how we're going to survive in this age-old, I don't know, what do we call brewing? It's an age-old trade. Yeah. Right?
The monks.
It's been a hard few years, but nobody saw COVID coming.
Correct.
I think that the future's pretty bright for craft beer, but I think we're going to have to be fluid and being willing to embrace new technologies and new partnerships, which you do all the time.
Yep. Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Dave Hoops, stop by Hoops Brewing, get one of his famous beers, and recognize excellence when you see it, because not too many places in the world can say you have that kind of excellence and skill set. And when you have that kind of love going into a craft, whether it be music or art or whatever, it's what comes of us, and that's called commitment and excellence. Thanks again, Dave.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks, Rod.